I'm super excited. I'm very, very happy, and yeah, I'm very emotional about it actually. They were a very interesting discussion because they all were very much interested in the techniques, in how the garments were made, and so I was explaining them how the process of making the collection was done the last few months, and they were very enthusiastic and there was very nice reaction. So yeah, it made me very happy.
So the beautiful pictures coming from London, and with that Woolmark prize now, and also the famous celebrity judge Victoria Beckham being part of it. Of course, you can imagine how Victoria Beckham came to this situation. I mean, she initially started off as one of the Spice Girls, I think she was Posh Spice, and then suddenly she was known as the celebrity wife of the famous footballer David Beckham, and David Beckham has now, I suppose, gone slightly out of the spotlight into maybe a twilight, from America to playing for the Galaxies and then back. But Victoria Beckham has increasingly come across as a bigger celebrity name, and here she is at the Woolmark prize bench. And also very interesting to see how they are promoting the young and emerging designers in that competition with a 100,000 Australian dollar award, which is of course very good because the fashion industry, as we have always had guests on Good Morning Sri Lanka, they've always said it's a very difficult industry to emerge in, and you need a lot of support, and such things are very useful. Of course, I was disappointed to hear that the participants were from Australia, India, our neighboring country, but I did not hear the country that I wanted to hear, Sri Lanka, because Sri Lanka indeed has a highly increased interest in the fashion design, leading from the fact that we are a global leader in the apparel sector, as well as now the fashion retail in Sri Lanka as a fashion design, and the fashion industry itself has developed in leaps and bounds, and we do have our own fashion week, the Colombo Fashion Week, I think, which is going to be held pretty soon in Sri Lanka as well, and we are going leaps and bounds. So our designers possibly, and I hope so in a few years to come, that we will also be beneficiary of this Woolmark prize, because we do have international quality, just the fact that we don't get the recognition that we should. Of course, leading from that discussion from some celebrities, of course there's always good things from celebrities as well as bad things, and of course we talked a lot about the issue with Lance Armstrong, the famous 6-time winner of the Tour de France, who is now a disgraced winner, of course, with all his drug abuse and so on. Now the most recent development with regard to this is that Lance Armstrong is now being sued by the US federal the US State Department with regard to the sponsorship that he received from the US Postal Services. Now, Lance Armstrong was a poster boy for the US Postal Department. Now, what happened here was there was a 6-year franchise, a 6-year sponsorship deal for Lance Armstrong, where he was going to be sponsored by the US Postal Department with all his expenses, and so was his team. And it was indeed shocking for them, and there are, I think, about $30 million of sponsorship was given for his cycling and his endeavors, and all this now sadly has resulted in reason to recover all this, because Lance Armstrong was not who he was, and his poster boy image as the US Postal Services brand ambassador has now been destroyed, and they are trying to recover all this money. Now, in the wake of this, what they have said is what Lance Armstrong and his team did was a fraud on public money, because it is the State Department money which is public money, and a $30 million suit is coming. Now, of course, the attorneys for both sides are fighting it out, trying to come to a settlement, but the news is that they are about 10 million apart, there are discussions and the negotiations. So it's very interesting to see how all this pans out. Of course, we will also discuss the upcoming news about what has happened with Oscar Pistorius, the famous story that we covered on Good Morning Sri Lanka a while back. Blade Runner, such a glorified man. At the time, he ran for the Olympics as the first double amputee to compete in the modern Olympics, and it was a fantastic achievement for him and sport as well as disabled sportsmen. And suddenly we had the controversy now with Riva Steenkamp, his girlfriend, who passed away due to alleged murder, and so interesting to see how this pans out. And of course his brother himself has now got into a bit of a tangle. So we'll discuss all that just after the break, and we'll return on Good Morning Sri Lanka. Hello and welcome to Good Morning Sri Lanka. So we did cover that very interesting discussion from Lance Armstrong, the famous sportsman, to the now allegedly disgraced Oscar Pistorius. Now, of course, for those of you who did not hear what I said before, Oscar Pistorius, the famous Olympian who competed at the Olympics just last time at London, has now been allegedly involved in a murder case with his girlfriend. Now, what happened was that Riva Steam Camp was his girlfriend, and she had been shot 4 times and she passed away. The alleged murderer is of course Oscar Pistorius, who also interestingly has a past of having violent outbursts. He has a past of having guns and assault weapons in his house, apparently because he feels vulnerable because of his disabled status. And of course Riva Steam Camp was the unfortunate victim of this sudden death. Now the family of Riva Steam Camp of course do not agree with what Oscar Pistorius says, because he says that it was an accident and he believed that she was an intruder, and he shot at the door through the door in self-defense, and he was shocked. And of course the trial coverage has shown that Oscar Pistorius is weeping and crying and shaking and being nervous. Of course there will be a lot of coverage, there will be a lot of people analyzing what his true emotions should be, his body language will be studied to see. There will be people studying it very well, because of course when it comes to these murder trials, it's very interesting to see how people do act out. The tears can come, crocodile tears as they are, which are not true. Of course, with this whole controversy, the Pistorius family is not going through a good time at all, because his brother, Carl Pistorius, who has also been indicted for this similar crime, a homicide trial, where he had run over a motorcyclist. A motorcyclist was killed, and now this trial is also being initiated by the persons who were the family of the dead victim, in that case the motorcyclist. Now they have instituted action as well. 5 years ago the charges were dropped, but the charges are being reinstated and it's going to be taken up as well. And of course in his case the charge is an unlawful negligent killing of another person, whereas Pistorius has the culpable homicide, which is basically killing with some intention, which is what is alleged to have done. Of course there were pictures of Pistorius and his girlfriend, and they really did seem happy, so it is very hard to think and imagine why this could have happened. But of course to imagine that a person would shoot 5 times in self-defense is also quite odd, and with his violent past and so on, so it's quite possible that this in fact was a murder. And we don't know how this will pan out, but it in fact will be a trial with huge publicity and will go on, and we really have to see what happens. And to the sporting community, which had that triumph when Oscar Pistorius ran, I mean, it was a brilliant moment when you saw that man running, the Blade Runner as he was called, and to see that triumph suddenly come into this controversy and this issue, it's quite saddening. But of course this is how life goes. It has its booms and its lows. So also with that, few more celebrities now on to happier times. Of course, those of you who have watched Slumdog Millionaire would of course love the famous and beautiful face from India, Frida Pinto. Beautiful girl, and she has been involved with a certain Burberry fashion show, and with Kate Beckinsale and so on, and it's just come to London Fashion Week, which is one of the most highly prolific fashion weeks of the world. And let's have a look at what has happened here.
One of the most high-profile shows at London Fashion Week, Christopher Bailey's Burberry Catwalk, saw stars including actress Kate Beckinsale and Brit singer Rita Ora flocking to Kensington Gardens on Monday. Beckinsale said she was joining a teenage daughter, Lily Mosheen, who received an invite from the renowned British fashion house.
Well, I'm very excited because they invited my daughter to come, and she's really into fashion, so I think her eyes are going to pop out of her head. So because I'm a mum, I get mainly excited about when my kid gets excited, but I just think he does such a great show, and I've never been able to actually be in town for when this one happens. So.
When asked whether she would allow Lily to model for Burberry like young Romeo Beckham, who features in the latest ad campaign, the actress said she wasn't too sure.
I haven't thought about that. I'm shocked that she's out of a high chair, to be honest.
Slamdog actor Frida Pinto said Burberry trenches were one of the must-have items in the fashionistas list.
Love their trenches. I have 2 or 3 in different colours, just because it's such a classic wear. You can, it's kind of like one of those lightweight travel items that you need to have in your bag, and you can just like put a different trench on, and you've got a whole new different look going on. And the collection that I'm wearing these clothes from is such an unpredictable collection. This is going to be a very, very difficult year because we have, this year particularly, has such fantastic films. But I really liked Argo. I thought it was fantastic filmmaking, and go Ben Affleck.
Very bright and keep it cool and young and fresh, and I think that it caters for all types of women, all types of men, and it's super wearable. I don't wear them anymore. They're they go in and out of trends. It was a while ago, but I'm going to keep them, and they'll probably come back in fashion one day soon.
And British actor Douglas Booth, who once modelled for Burberry, kept reporters guessing when he suggested that there were going to be a surprise planned for today's show.
I mean, I've seen rain, I've seen snow, I've seen quite a lot of Burberry shows, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they have in store today.
Other stars seen entering the Burberry marquee included rapper Teeny Tempa, American Vogue editor Anna Wintour, and Downton Abbey actor Michelle Doherty.
Have it, a very interesting story from the Burberry Fashion Week. Of course, all the celebrity personalities getting involved with fashion. Of course, celebrities and fashion is, it goes hand in hand. And it's interesting how in these situations such as the London Fashion Week, it is a statement of all these celebrities to make their presence known and their comments given with regard to the fashion and what styles and trends are coming up. Because of course, at all these events, such as the recently concluded Oscars, which we are going to cover on Good Morning Sri Lanka, because a very interesting set of awards and presents were made in the Oscars concluded on Monday. So plenty to cover on Good Morning Sri Lanka in the next week of that as well. Speaking about after the beautiful celebrities of Kate Beckinsale and Frida Pinto, lovely as they are, also another favorite celebrity of all of us was from the lovely Lady Lumps from Black Eyed Peas. Now, the Black Eyed Peas, of course, sadly had disbanded very recently. Of course, possibly their own personal career, such as will.i.am having his own album, and Fergie, the famous Fergie, wanting her own album, and all the other guys involved in that fantastic band of our times, of course, has come to an end. But then Fergie has some very interesting news, because she is expecting a baby with her husband Josh Duhamel, and the news is that she is pregnant. And of course, she has shared a picture on her Instagram page, #mylovelybabybump. And of course, that comes from the song that she sang, My Lovely Lady Lumps, from that famous song of My Humps from Black Eyed Peas, which is a classic. I wouldn't call it a classic. It was a crazy hit. It was all over. Every place you go, you would hear that song, and people used to dance and frolic to that song. And here we have it, Fergie using it on her Instagram page. So you should check that picture out, because the fact that Fergie is expecting is in fact great news, and so possibly a great star in the making as well. Speaking about celebrity stars, we also have, before we end the show, from a Canadian singer, writer, and a fantastic artist, Nelly Furtado, and her song Spirit, which was a fantastic hit from her new 5th album, I believe. And we'll end on that positive note about the body, mind, and the positiveness of being in spirit with the world and with others. So wish you a best one